Hello, welcome to the SSRC Eurasia Program Fellowship Application webinar. My name is Denise Mischwitz and I am Program Coordinator of the Eurasia Program at the Social Science Research Council here in Brooklyn, New York. If you have any issues with the audio, hopefully everyone can hear me fine. Just let me know in the chat panel, which is on the control panel that should be visible on your screen right now. So if you have any difficulties hearing me, just please let me know. All right. So let's talk about the goals of this webinar. First of all, of course, we are going to learn about the SSRC Eurasia Program Fellowships. I assume that's what most people are here and interested in. We'll talk about eligibility, about the application, and about the selection process. We'll also give some general advice on crafting a strong application for this and any other applications that you might be writing. And at the end, we will have time for questions and answers. Also on your control panel, you should see a tab for questions. And so throughout the course of the presentation, feel free to type in questions. And at the end, we'll come back to the questions and I'll take time to answer as many of your questions as I can. So hopefully we'll have a good amount of questions and lots of time for that. Okay, so our fellowships program is funded by the Title VIII program. So what is this Title VIII? Title VIII program is administered by the Bureau of Intelligence and Research, INR, which is part of the United States State Department. The program provides funding for research and language training to American scholars and students. Unfortunately, this means we are only able to fund United States citizens and permanent residents. And unfortunately, there's no flexibility on that issue. The funds through Title VIII are for the study of Eastern Europe and Eurasia. And the SSRC Eurasia program has our own specific niche within that, which we'll be talking about. And the purpose of Title VIII is to maintain U.S. expertise in the region and also to bring open source policy relevant research to the service of the U.S. government. All that means is that the government recognizes that it's in their own best interest to support graduate study of Eurasia, because having a wide amount of diverse research on Eurasia helps them to make better decisions. So that's why we have the Title VIII program. We are not, of course, the only people who get funds through Title VIII. I'm sure you're familiar with many of the Title VIII funding opportunities. These include IREX with their IARO fieldwork grants. American Councils has short-term grants and language grants. NCER supports the work mostly of senior scholars. And of course, many universities have Title VIII funds like Indiana, Illinois, Arizona, and then there is us here, the SSRC. Our focus is on graduate students and young scholars, and we define young scholars as within 5 years of receipt of PhD. And we have a variety of training and field development programs that we run. Including field building workshops, which is one of our primary activities. Very recently, this past weekend, we had a field building workshop at George Washington University. It was called Crossing Boundaries, Merging Eurasian Insights with the Study of Afghanistan. We had 5 faculty members and 12 participants come together to workshop their papers. It was a really fantastic event. And over the summer, we also ran 2 workshops in quantitative methods in Eurasian studies. Unfortunately, we are not offering those again this summer, but we are going to be running a webinar series on issues in quant methods in Eurasian studies. These are going to be led by Jane Zawiska from the University of Arizona, and information on that will be going out soon. And then, of course, we have our fellowships. We have the Pre-Dissertation Award, the PDA. This is for young scholars to do preliminary fieldwork. And we have the Dissertation Development Award, DDA, which is for 1 academic year of funding for dissertation write-up. So here you can see the website where you can access our online application, and I hope that you've all been there already. And also here is the list of countries that are covered by the Eurasia Program Fellowships. It is more narrow than just the former Soviet Union. So we cover projects that look at the South Caucasus, Central Asia, and Russia, Ukraine, Belarus, Moldova, and you can see the list here. So we do not cover projects that are solely on Central or Eastern Europe or the Baltics or other regions. However, if you are doing a comparative project, for example, if you are looking at Romania, Bulgaria, Ukraine, and the research on Ukraine is a significant part of your project, then you are eligible to apply for a Eurasia Program Fellowship. We also accept projects on cross-regional issues, and this means maybe you're looking at Central Asia and China. We would accept that definitely as an eligible project for our fellowships, and also those are a priority topic for the State Department, so looking at the relations between Eurasia and its neighbors. And another priority area is non-Russian states, regions, and peoples. But again, we accept applications from all disciplines, studying all of these countries, but one of these countries has to be a primary research focus of your project to receive funding. Okay, so as I just said, our projects cover, acceptable projects cover a wide range of disciplines. We are the Social Science Research Council, but the humanities are also eligible for these awards. And I'll be showing some charts later on our disciplinary breakdowns. As I said, unfortunately, only U.S. citizens and permanent residents are eligible for this funding, and that means that you must be a citizen or permanent resident as of the deadline of December 1st, 2012. And we are looking for strong applications that contribute to the applicant's discipline and to the field of Eurasian studies. So not only is it something telling us something new about Eurasia, but it's also strong within its own discipline. And we have an interdisciplinary committee who can assess that. So why apply for an SSRC Eurasia Fellowship? What are some of the positive outcomes that we've seen among our past fellows? In terms of the Pre-Dissertation Award, 64% of the recipients have advanced to candidacy within 1 year. So it has shown a effect on speeding up or keeping on schedule the academic timeline of the recipients. 80% say the award enhanced their methodological skills, and less than half of the Title VI less than half of the recipients have been from Title VI universities. These are the universities receiving funds for the National Resource Centers, so the big Eurasian Studies centers. Typically, there's more funding available for students at Title VI universities, and so we see it as our funds are supporting students who have less support available to them, and we're happy that that is so. For the Dissertation Development Award, the 1-year write-up, we have an 89% dissertation completion rate within 24 months. And that is actually really good because dissertation completion rates are typically much lower than that. We provide professional development and networking and mentoring that helps students to get their dissertations done. And 90% of the DDA award recipients maintain a strong research interest in Eurasia. So the funding allows them to stay focused on the region. So now let's talk specifically about the 2 fellowships that we're offering this year. The first is the Pre-Dissertation Awards. We anticipate giving out 6 of the awards this year. These awards are for up to $3,000, and they can be used for 4 weeks of fieldwork. Eligibility is we're looking for early stage graduate students, typically in the 2nd or 3rd year, but that depends on your program. But the fieldwork should be completed prior to the defense of your dissertation perspectives. And you can use the funds for this anywhere from June 1st, 2013 to August 31st, 2014, but typically the funds are used in the summer of 2013. So that would be typical. These funds are used to allow our fellows to do preliminary exploration of their field sites, archives, and to do feasibility studies. Maybe you know that you want to do your primary field work in 4 cities of Russia, but you haven't yet decided which cities. Well, you can use this to scout out your field sites and see what's there. Or maybe you hear that there's some more resources in some archive somewhere, but you don't know if you'll be able to access them or what's actually there. Well, you can use these funds to go and do a preliminary visit to the archive to make sure that it's going to be good for you to actually spend your 9 months or a year and a half or what have you there on your field work. Pre-dissertation awards also allow our fellows to build their research networks to make contacts. In order to go on the field work, the fellows must show evidence of IRB approval and ethics training. Not at the time of application, but if you do receive the funding, you must secure IRB approval or let us know if it's not necessary for your project. But it's a very good idea in your application to mention IRB so that we know that this is on your radar, say when you would apply or what you think it would entail, the IRB process for your project. And the Pre-Dissertation Award also includes professionalization activities. We had a pre-travel training in our office on research ethics, IRB approval, and field safety. And we also require a policy brief from these fellows, which is a very good professional experience, how to write a good policy document. And of course, you are then part of our network. So Pre-Dissertation Awards are meant to support promising research with clear policy links and disciplinary relevance. Policy relevance is an important part of the project in the application, but I'll be talking about that in more detail later in the presentation. And these are modest in size. They're not a ton of money, but they are significant in impact. They enable scholars to move faster in their fieldwork and to get more done and just to be doing stronger work. So here I have the link for our website, ssrc.org/EEA, and I'm going to try to access this right now. Okay. So we have a variety of resources available here. We have our past webinars. We have profiles of our alumni and fellows. We have working papers. Soon we'll have policy briefs. But what you really should look at now is our current cohort of Pre-Dissertation Award recipients. So these are the 6 fellows who received funding last year, and they all went into the field this summer, and they're all back already. And so you can come here and just click on a fellow, and you can read the description of their project. And these are people who were successful in their funding applications. So it makes a lot of sense to come here and take a look and see what some successful projects have been. So I strongly recommend that you come and you take a look at these while you're crafting your research proposal. Okay. And this is just, as I was saying, we're the Social Science Research Council, but we accept applications from all disciplines. So it's kind of hard to read quickly, but anthropology has received 16 of our PDAs in the scope of this, which is, I believe, in the last 15 years. 33 are in political science, 31 history, also 9 sociology. But you can see that a whole variety of disciplines have received funding, including theater, religious studies, law, economics, art history, the list goes on. So really, any application, any discipline can be successful. It all depends on the quality of the application. So now, the Dissertation Development Awards. We anticipate giving 10 this year. These awards are for $20,000, and the length of the award is 9 consecutive months. And the 9 consecutive months are of the choosing of the fellow, but they must take place between September 1st, 2013 and August 31st, 2014. Of course, you are applying for other sources of funding, and we accept dual funding of a project. So if you receive other funding, that's fine. But we have a cap of $25,000 in total funding. And what that means is if you receive the DDA from us, and say you also receive $10,000 from your university for write-up, that means you've received a total of $30,000 in funding. We would then renegotiate our award with you to $15,000. And then your total amount of money that you would receive from both sources would be $25,000. So we require our fellows just to let us know what other funds they receive, and then we negotiate it on a case-by-case basis. But you should definitely be applying for lots of funding. The Dissertation Development Awards are meant to support the prompt completion of promising dissertations. Fellows are not allowed to accept any work during the term of their award. No graduate assistantships, no jobs. So this 9-month period is spent solely on the writing of the dissertation. And because of that, we have a strong expectation that the dissertation will be completed and defended during the fellowship period. And as we said, we have a strong track record of this. So if you feel that you're not going to finish your dissertation this year, this might not be the right year for you to apply, because we really expect people to be ready to get the pen to the paper and to get it done. And as one of our resource faculty said at our workshop last weekend, push print by the end of the period. And the students who are eligible for this award are advanced graduate students. At the time of the start of the fellowship, research and fieldwork should be completed, and the student should be ABD. The DDA also has its own professionalization activities. We have a 3-day workshop where the fellows gather with some resource faculty who are often on the selection committee, and they present chapters of their dissertation, and they get feedback from the group. We also have a bunch of professionalization sessions at that, like how to complete your dissertation, navigating the job market, publishing, and there's a lot of great advice that comes from everyone's peers and from the faculty. The DDA award recipients are also required to submit policy briefs and working papers. Of course, there's lots of good networking opportunities that come from being part of the SSRC Eurasia program with your cohort of fellows, with our alumni. And again, policy relevance and disciplinary relevance are very important for this funding. And on our website, just like our PDAs, if you scroll down, you can find our wonderful Dissertation Development Award winners. We have anthropologists, historians, 2 sociologists, the political scientist, a whole range of geographical interests. And again, you can come here and look over the dissertation abstracts that they submitted to us at the beginning of this year, and you can see what some successful projects are. And again, that's invaluable to you as you are writing your research proposals. Okay. Another aspect of the DDA, which is often a more confusing part of the application, is the university cost share. So along with the application, the DDAs, but not the PDAs, have to submit an institutional support form. This is available on the online application system. You download it, print it out. It's filled out by the appropriate person at your university, and you submit that along with your application. Basically, your university needs to demonstrate that it is providing a minimum of 10% of the award, which is $2,000, to you in some kind of support. This support can be direct financial support or in-kind support. And some examples of in-kind support are tuition remission, waiver of any fees, providing you with health coverage during the fellowship period, giving you office space and access to technology, library access, computer IT. It's very easy to meet the 10% threshold. So it should not be a problem. But if you have any questions or difficulties with this, you can just send me an email and we'll work through it. And again, a chart of our, let's see, 1985 to 2012, out of 224 cases, this is the breakdown by discipline: anthropology, political science, history, languages and literatures, and again, you see sociology also well represented, but again, a wide wealth of disciplines here. So the strength of the proposal, if it's a strong proposal that is policy relevant and contributing to Eurasian studies and to the discipline, then it's a strong candidate for funding. And last year we offered a postdoctoral research award, and we have 4 postdocs this year who we are supporting, but unfortunately we were not funded to offer the postdocs this current year. So if anyone or any of your friends were wondering about this, unfortunately we're not able to offer those this year. Write to your congressman and demand it. Okay. So now let's talk about policy relevance. On the application, there is one question on policy relevance. It basically asks, how is your project policy relevant? And this is a very important part of the application. It's a small question, but definitely do not just fill it in without much thought, because this is something that definitely comes up during the deliberations of the committee, because this is important not just to our funder, but any project that is worth funding should be saying something about the world that's important. So here's some ways to think about policy relevance and how you can articulate that about your individual work. So Why is your work important? What is it about your research that you are helping people to understand? What is it that you're helping them to understand about the country or society that you're looking at, or about the world? Another way to put this is, how does your work inform wider political, economic, cultural, or social contexts? Policy relevance isn't just about politics. Policy relevance is having an understanding of cultural and social factors in a given place that help people make decisions that are good, sound decisions. So it's not just about politics. It could be about a specific cultural issue, and understanding that issue will help someone make better decisions about individual policies that they want to run in a certain society. So there's a few more questions here. The one on the bottom is the most policy-y one of these. How does the project expand U.S. regional knowledge, expertise, and national capability? But the way I think about it is just, what am I contributing? What am I telling someone about my country that helps them to better understand it? And that is what you want to explain to us in the policy relevance box. Why is it important? What am I explaining about the world that's important? So that's the way you can think about policy relevance. And really, spend an hour on this question, because it could be very important in the end to your success. I just put a few past recipients here so you can get an idea of some of the projects that have been funded. You can also look on our website. But here's just a few disciplines. I'm not going to read all of these. And you can just see some of the geographical areas, some of the thematic topics that have been looked at in some of the fields. And these are mostly from the last few years. I even threw in a comp-lit project, archaeology project, so you can see that really there's no limit to what you can do. These were all considered very strong projects. So now let's get into some advice. Advice from our selection committee, advice from that I saw from the previous deliberations, and just general advice that can be applied to our fellowships or to funding in general. So one very important thing in your proposal is, whatever is your research question, whatever is the central focus of your work, you want to state it clearly in the first paragraph. Some people are wonderful writers, and you might write this beautiful narrative, and on page 5 you get to your research question and you reveal it in this beautiful moment. Well, that doesn't help the committee, who is reading a lot of applications, and they just want to know, what are you studying? What is your puzzle? What is it that you're trying to explain? So don't hide your treasure. Take your treasure and you put it at the beginning and let the whole world see it. Because when we're dealing with so many excellent applications, you really want to make it easy for people to understand what you're studying, what you're looking at. Also, avoid any specific disciplinary jargon. Our committee comes from many different disciplines, and if your work is too technical, you might lose some of the committee. Of course, they're educated people and they are familiar with other disciplines, but just make sure that it's clear to an educated layperson. A piece of advice that I would give you is to make sure that it's easy to understand by me and the committee where you are on your academic timeline. For a DDA, this would be, make sure that we see that you are ready to write that dissertation. Include your table of contents. If you've already drafted some of your chapters, then make sure that you write that in your application, because that'll stand you in good stead. For PDAs, I noticed in the last year that some universities have different timelines on things like quals and defending of the dissertation proposal. So if your university has a different timeline, or if you're maybe later in your academic career than 2 or 3 years, but you're still eligible, just make that explicit. Like, explain, like, this is the timeline of my university of all the major mileposts of graduate study, and this is where I am, and that you are eligible. So make it easy for us to understand where you are in your timeline. I've spent a lot of time going through applications last year, and I couldn't understand like exactly where the student was in the timeline, and that makes it harder for us to know how strong of a candidate you are. So make it easy to understand. So stress your commitment and focus to your work. You want to highlight your language skills. They're listed on the application, but you might want to bring them up in the proposal about your specific language skills and how they'll help you accomplish the writing of your dissertation or the tasks that you set out to do in your PDA award. Highlight your understanding of the cultural and political context of the place that you're studying and your field experience. And if you have experience overseas that's not included in your application, maybe you were just living or do something else, you can include that too to show how much time you have out in the field. And you really just want to highlight how the abilities and research that you already have are going to enable you to better undertake your project. And it's very good if you write in your proposal how this experience is going to inform and affect your future work in your career. So especially with the PDA, what is it that you will achieve if you are able to do this preliminary field work? How is this going to influence your future work? So this is a good aspect of a strong application. Excuse me. Okay, and another question that often comes up when we're looking at proposals is your project feasible in terms of time and resources? For the Pre-Dissertation Award, do you have the language skills and the training and the methods to do what you say you're going to do? If you say in your proposal that you're going to go to 10 cities in Russia looking for field sites and you're going to whittle it down to 2 and you don't speak Russian and you've never been there before, that's not feasible. That's not going to happen. So make sure that the project that you're proposing is something that you can accomplish in 4 weeks, and make sure that you have the skills to do it, or that you write about how you're going to gain those skills or how you're going to get around that. And for the DDA, you want to make sure that it's clear from the application and from your letters of recommendation that you are going to be able to complete the dissertation by the end of the fellowship. So not only should you include table of contents or your status in your application, but make sure that your letter writers, especially your advisor, addresses that in the letter. Don't overlook your bibliography. You have 2 pages. I know it's 2 for the DDA. I don't recall if it's 2 or 1 for the PDA of bibliography. And you have such a small amount of space that don't overlook these 2 pages. They're very valuable. So make sure that you put in some time and do a really excellent bibliography. And by all means, include non-English sources if you're using them. It shows your skill with the language. On the application, be inventive and attentive to the policy relevance question. Again, it's only 1 box, but it's a very important box, and make sure you put your thought into it. This might seem obvious, but make sure you complete all of the elements of the application. But we do receive incomplete applications, and incomplete applications are disqualified and they are not sent out for a review. Letters are extremely important. Letters are a very important part of the deliberation process, and I believe I'm going to be talking about letters on the next slide. And if at all possible, send your application in before the deadline. Who knows? There might be a hurricane that might knock out our server, which is exactly what happened last week, and the application was down. And you may have friends applying for IDRF. IDRF had to change their deadline because of Hurricane Sandy. But not only that, if you send your application in before the deadline, it gives us more time to flag any possible issues that we might see, which after the deadline, there won't be such an opportunity. So work on it now, work on it early, and get it in. Okay, so letters. Make sure you choose your letter writers carefully. These should be people who know you and know your project. Letters are a huge part of the selection process. Make sure that the recommenders have read your proposal for the project. And when you are sending the letter request through our online application system, you can check a box and it will automatically also send your research proposal if you've already uploaded it. So it's nice and easy. And And make sure you give all of the materials to your letter writers well in advance. I went into the system this morning, and we can see how many letters have been requested. And the applicants for our fellowships have not requested a lot of letters yet. I strongly suggest that you send those requests through the system to the letter writers to give them more time. It's very fast to send them, and your letter writers, I'm sure, will appreciate that if they get them soon. And again, with the DDA, make sure that they include in the letter, that they tailor the letter for the fellowship to include their assessment of your ability to complete the dissertation within the fellowship period. And it's your responsibility to make sure the letters are submitted in time. And even after you've submitted the application, you can go back into the system and you can track your professors and see if they've submitted the letters. And you can also send reminders through the system. So make sure that as the December 1st deadline approaches that you are going back into the system and tracking your letter writers and giving them a nudge if necessary. If the letters are missing, your application will be incomplete and it will be not reviewed, so it's very important. A general advice on writing applications for funding, for all funding, is to work together with other people. Some people may already do this, but it's a really good practice to form fellowship application groups together and to work together to provide feedback on each other's applications and to read successful applications. Like I know one of our fellows who was successful last year has already given her application to a fellowship group to help them with their application writing. So, you know, you can review each other's applications, you can share advice, you can tell people what you've heard works for certain fellowships and what works for others. You can tell people what funding opportunities are available out there that they might not know about, and reading over the successful applications, as I mentioned. And some people think of, why would I do that? I want to work alone, and I want to, you know, keep all the information as close to myself as I can because I want to win. You know, this is a competitive process. Well, applying for fellowships is in many ways a cumulative process because the more you do it and the more you write and the more you apply, the more you learn and the stronger your applications are. So don't just think of it as competition, think of it as something that you can improve your skills on. And so working together is actually a good thing. Here's just a quick overview of how we select fellows. Incomplete applications are not reviewed, of course. Our committee is made up of 9 scholars. Most of the scholars have received funding from the SSRC Eurasia Program in the past. The chair is Peter Colquist, History Department at the University of Pennsylvania. And you can find a full list of our committee on our webpage. So if you're curious who it is making these decisions, that is public knowledge and you're free to look at it. We have usually a 3-stage process of selection. Step 1, the applications are screened in our office for eligibility and completeness by program staff, which is me. Step 2, we send the applications out for review, and each application is reviewed by 2 or 3 committee members. And usually in the first round of review, they're read by people with the same discipline or with the same regional interest to have a close read by an expert. After this round of scores, a cut is made, and the top applications are then sent out for review by an additional 2 or 3 committee members who then, again, scores the applications. And based on these scores, we select finalists. The applications are then read by all committee members, and we have a meeting in our office in early April where the committee comes to Brooklyn, gets together, and decides on the fellowship recipients for the next year and the alternates. And we do everything in our power to get that information out to applicants as soon as possible. So by mid-April, you should be receiving by email information on your status, be it fellow, alternate, or unfortunately unsuccessful. And just a quick note on our online application system, as I mentioned, the application server was down due to the hurricane for all of last week. If you experienced any difficulties logging in, it was really out of our control. The electricity has now returned to the building that houses the server. I believe that was on Tuesday. So the building is in Lower Manhattan and they were without power. And initially it was on a generator, now it's on normal power, so we're not anticipating any additional problems, and we're also not anticipating changing our deadline. So I think we have enough time left that we don't have to take that into account. But if you do experience any problems with the application system, do send an email so that I can let them know. And we will get past this. Okay, that brings us to our question session here. I'm just going to go and open up the question tab on my screen, and if you have any questions now that you haven't sent in yet, then just please do so we can see. Okay, so let me just try to make this big so I could see. Just 1 second. All right. Okay, so not a lot of questions, but that's good. That means we can get through them all. Okay, so one question I see is somebody is defending their proposal tomorrow. So good luck. And they plan to be ABD by December. And they're asking which of the fellowships they should apply for, the PDA or the DDA. Well, if you are ABD by December, then you are no longer eligible for the Pre-Dissertation Award. So the appropriate award for you is definitely the Dissertation Development Award. But if you will not have completed your fieldwork and research by the beginning of the fellowship period, which is September, or whichever month you choose, but 9 months before the end of August 2014, then maybe this is not the year for you to apply. But if you'll be ready to start writing up by that period, then by all means apply. So let me know if you have any additional questions on that by email or by phone. Let's see. Someone has a question about how many policy briefs and working papers the fellows must submit. Well, they ask about the DDA, but I'll just let you know for both. For the PDA, the pre-dissertation, we require 1 policy brief. And a policy brief is a 2-page document, so it takes a lot of time to write. I think that writing a policy brief is a different style of writing than a lot of people are used to, but it's very useful. And for the DDAs, for the Dissertation Development Awards, we require 1 policy brief and 1 working paper. And those are due at the end of the fellowship period. And if you like doing this kind of writing, of course we accept more, but it's just 1 of each. 1 policy brief, 1 working paper. Okay. A question here is, can inter- or transdisciplinary applications be successful for the PDA? And if so, how would such applicants best demonstrate contributions to their field? The SSRC is actually the home of interdisciplinary social science. And all of our field building activities here at the Eurasia program are interdisciplinary. Like at our workshop we just had last week, we had media studies, anthropology, political science, public affairs, everybody together. So we very warmly welcome interdisciplinary work. And I think that in terms of demonstrating contribution to their field, you could first talk about why your interdisciplinary approach is valuable, like how is that contributing? And if you want to go into your specific disciplines, how it's contributing, you can do that too, but to keep it short. But I think that for you, it would be valuable to talk about how your interdisciplinary approach is valuable. How is that contributing? Okay, so let me just look at the next question. Okay, we have a student who is a permanent resident of the United States of America, but she is studying overseas, and she would like to know if she's eligible. The answer is yes. If you are an American citizen or permanent resident, if you are applying, if you were studying in Europe or in Russia or anywhere, you are still eligible. It doesn't matter where you're studying. So you feel free to apply if you're studying overseas as long as you're a citizen or permanent resident. And they also ask if their research is looking at Russia and the United States, are they eligible? And the answer to that is also yes. As long as a large significant part of your research pertains to one of the countries that was on that list that I showed earlier, then you are eligible. And Russia is obviously on the list. So yes and yes to this question. The next question is, if I anticipate more than $3,000 in cost for the PDA, can I apply? And the answer is yes, you may. If your expenses are higher than $3,000, they simply will not be covered by the PDA. But we will cover up to $3,000 of the cost of your fellowship. And so your budget can be higher than $3,000, and we won't be able to cover all of it. I have a question from someone who I know, so hello to you, question asker, who asks, is field research the only way of spending PDA funds? Actually, no. You can use the PDA funds also on methodological training. So if you want to do something like stats or quant training or something like that here in the United States, I believe that is also possible. But I do not think we will cover language training. So methods training or field work. Okay. Next question. Somebody asks about conditional permanent residency and if they are eligible for funding, and the answer is I do not know. So if you send me an email, I can look into that for you. Okay. So for that individual question about conditional permanent resident of America, send me an email and I'll confirm that because I'm actually not sure. Okay. We have a question about whether the DDA fellow would be able to use funding for additional short trips to the field. In the past, we've offered add-on travel grants to our DDA fellows, but this year we decided not to. We decided to give the fellows more money in the fellowship and less money in additional funds. I think that the funds could be used to do this. You would have to mention it in your proposal or get permission, but I think you could use the funds to do short supplemental trips to the field, but they would have to be short and they would have to not interfere with dissertation completion. So look over the application. There's a list there of what you can and can't use the funding for. I believe we edited this year to allow some trips, but we can clarify that. So again, just look over the application again, and if you still have questions, you can let me know, and I'll confirm that. Somebody asks if the applications are anonymous, and I assume this means do the committee members know who the applicants are? And the answer is yes. It's really impossible to make the applications anonymous given the amount of work that goes into them, the letters, the transcripts, all the components of the application. And also, it wouldn't really be that anonymous. It's not that large of a field. So no, the applications are not anonymous. The committee knows who the applications are from. Okay, let me just take a look at the next question. Okay, so this is for someone who's going to be doing field work until September. And so that's a very good question about the term of the fellowship, first of all. So if you know that you're going to be in the field until, for example, October, and you already have funding and plans, that's okay. Because you can have your fellowship period at the SSRC be for any 9-month period until the end of August 2014. So you can start your fellowship period, I think, as late as December and still get that 9 months in. And the second question this person has is, would they be able to participate in our fall workshop if they're in the field? For example, if we had it in September. And the answer is yes, you would. We would fly you back from wherever you were just to attend our workshop, and we did that with 2 people this year who were overseas at the time of our fellows workshop. But if we know in advance when you're going to be in the field, we'll try to plan around it because obviously it's expensive. So yes, if you're going to be back in October, we'll most likely have it in October anyway. Okay, let's see. Moving on. We have a question about what kind of language and literature projects received awards and whether a project on 19th century literature would be considered relevant. Yes, I mean, we have had applications in literature and art history looking at older, like 19th century or 20th century topics. and those are allowed. What I would suggest is you look on our website. We have a database of alumni, and you can then search through the database and see examples of projects. I don't remember if you can search by discipline, but if you just go to the SSRC website, to the Eurasia page, you'll see a link on that page to our database, and you can go through there and look for specific examples. But as long as you make a good argument for how your project is policy relevant to today, then it is definitely eligible. So that you just want to give some thought to that policy relevance, and you can look at our previous projects on the alumni database or our website. Okay, moving on. We have a question. If this funding can be used to carry a co-authored project, which is also part of the dissertation research. I'm not sure if this question is about the PDA or the DDA, because research, the only one that covers research is the PDA. For the DDA, the research should already be completed. And I don't believe there's any co-authored dissertations. So if the person who's writing this question, I think this is a very individual question, so again, you can contact me by email or by phone. But if you're doing a co-authored project at the DDA stage, I suppose that would be eligible. I don't think we would have a problem with that. Okay. We have a question on if you're eligible to apply if you are a dual citizen of 2 countries. One of them is United States. I believe yes. If you're a United States citizen, yes, you can. We have a question. Should I present preliminary findings in the DDA proposal application? I think yes. If you already have preliminary findings, I think you can present them, and you can just also state what exact point that you are in the application. I mean, in your research. So you could say these are preliminary findings based on this, and these are my plans for what I'm continuing to do with this information, with this data. But I think having preliminary findings would help strengthen the case that you are going to complete your dissertation in time, that you're already like pretty deep into your work. Okay. Let me see. So someone is asking about people who are looking at pre-modern projects and how that these can be related to policy relevance. We do have people, we have a lot of historians who receive funding. I showed those graphs earlier. In fact, often the largest number of fellowships to any particular discipline go to history. So we definitely fund historians. We definitely fund historians looking at, farther back. I don't have any particular examples that come to mind, but again, I would encourage you to look at the alumni database on our website and see if you could see any examples. And for anyone, if you're having difficulty with the question of policy relevance, I don't mind at all if you contact me, and if you want to just have a quick talk where I give you more advice like I gave earlier. Like, I won't tell you how your project is policy relevant, but I'm happy to talk with you about it. Okay, we're getting towards the bottom of the questions here, so let's see. Okay. Someone has a question. They are currently finishing their master's program this year. This is their last academic year of their master's, and they'll be starting their PhD program next year. And they want to know if they're eligible to apply for the PDA. Yes, you are, because like I said, this program is for second or third year graduate students, so you are now a second year graduate student. That puts you in the eligibility period, and you can also have your advisors or include something from your department that says that you are going on to your PhD studies. I think that would make a stronger case for you, and also make sure you explicitly state that yourself in your application and in your proposal. And this person also asks if they will be at a disadvantage because they're a younger, earlier stage graduate student. And for the PDA, the answer is no. The PDA is designed for early stage graduate students. So it's designed for second and third year students. So you are actually at the exact right stage of your graduate studies. So that will not be a disadvantage against you, especially if it's clear that you're in a master's program as part of a PhD program. So that's not a problem. Okay. All right. Okay, good question. Should statements of policy relevance address specific contemporary applications of research, or should they be more broad? We actually had someone from the State Department come in to our workshop last weekend who is a policy analyst, and he was talking about exactly this issue. A lot of people, academics, when they hear policy relevance or policy brief, they feel like they're being asked to provide policy prescriptions. Here's what you should do, okay? I'm an expert at this, and here's what you should do as a politician. This is the policy that you should make. But that's not actually what a policy brief is. Policy briefs are documents where an expert in some area provides what they think is the relevant information about that subject that someone needs to understand in order to make intelligent and sound decisions. So you shouldn't be giving applications of policy. You shouldn't be giving policy recommendations. You should be giving background research into a specific area and saying why that's important for understanding the society or the thing that it is that you're studying. So again, what is it that your specific research topic is telling someone that helps them to better understand that society? So again, don't tell in this very small box on the application what someone needs to do. Tell them what they need to know. What do you need to know to make a good decision? And that is what policy relevance is. Okay, someone else had a similar question about the MA issue. If you're an MA and you're not already part of a PhD program or not already in the process of being accepted, it's going to be hard to be competitive for the PDA. But if you're in an MA program as part of a PhD program and you're already accepted, then that's much stronger. So I'm not clear from your question if you're already in a PhD program, like an MA to a PhD, which would be good. But if you're in an MA program and you're not going directly into a PhD program, then it wouldn't be as strong. Like, we want someone who's in a PhD program. And again, let me know if that wasn't exactly your case. Okay, someone has a question. Do stronger applicants have recommendation letters from professors from various disciplines or from their field? I would say for the development, the DDA, that you must have a letter from your advisor, of course. You should have another letter from someone most likely in your discipline that knows you very well. And for the third letter, I think you can go either way. You can either have someone from another discipline, as long as that person knows you really well and knows your research and you've actually been taking classes with them and getting advising from them, then sure, you can have someone from another discipline. Or you can have another one from your discipline if you haven't really been taking classes outside your discipline. But I would say, again, the most important thing about the letters is that they know you well, and that they are able to write you a letter tailored to you. The committee can tell right away if something is like a boilerplate. If it's just a letter that someone's writing for someone they don't know very well. Or that they're not taking the time to write like a real letter for you. So the most important is to make sure that your letter writers know you and know your project and are willing to put in the time on your letters. And then I think it is good to have someone from outside your discipline, but it's not necessary. But I think it shows that you are, working with, taking advantage of the resources at your institution. So I think that's a pretty good idea. Okay, we have a question for the PDA. How well developed should the research question or project be? You're early stage graduate students, so it's an understandable question, like exactly how much should you already have? Well, you want it to be a strong project. It's not your dissertation proposal. You're not already finished, but it should be strong. you should have a very clear idea of what your research question is. And you should have enough knowledge of that to back it up. Again, it's not expected to be quite as well developed as a DDA proposal, but you should know what you're doing. It shouldn't be exploratory project, like I want to find out about this. It should be, this is my research question, and this is what I know about this topic, and this is what I hope to achieve. So it should be pretty well developed. And this is actually the last question. It's also from someone who I have the pleasure of knowing, so hello. And they ask, are graphs and charts allowed in the proposal, and are they included in the word count? Graphs and charts are allowed in some disciplines, of course. How could you exist without a graph or a chart? And I think that they should be included in the word count. And I believe it's actually a page count, not a word count. So any graphs and charts have to be within the page limit of that section of the proposal. So just make sure, I don't remember the number of pages off the top of my head, unfortunately. If it's 7, I don't remember. But pages and any graphs and charts can't go over that limit. So just make sure that that's the case. 10, thank you. Yes, it's been very busy around here. So yes, don't go over your 10-page limit plus your 2 pages of bibliography. Compile that all into one document and upload it. So those are all the questions that I have seen coming in, and those are really excellent questions. And like I tried to say, if I didn't have a clear answer for you, or if your question was pretty individual and maybe I would need more information to give a clear answer, you can feel free to email or call the office and we could talk about it. I have the email address on the next slide, which is eurasia@ssrc.org. You can get in touch with any questions that you still have. The fellowship website is here, but I hope all of you have already logged in to that. And also, evaluation is a very important part of our work and the work of any nonprofit organization. And especially in the tough funding times where we are now, where the money made available for Eurasian studies is shrinking, it's very important to us to evaluate our activities to show how they are valuable. So I'm going to be sending everyone a survey, and I would appreciate very much if you would take 5 minutes to fill that out. So you should be getting that in your email probably tomorrow morning. So I would just like to thank everyone for coming, and I hope that this was useful as you're applying for this and other fellowships. And again, if you have any individual questions, just please let me know. And with that, I will say have a great day and goodbye.